Hello, welcome to episode 120 of Daryl Show Your Work and part two of my video series covering Armitage. So, in my previous video, I discussed port scanning and enumeration. So, this time in this part of the video, I'll be going into exploitation and exploitation activities. All right. So, but before I dive any further into that, since I am talking about offensive security and red teaming, I want to preface this video by saying this is for educational, research, and ethical purposes only. Any sort of malicious actions that may directly or indirectly come from someone watching my video, I do not take responsibility for, nor do I condone. All right, so the end of my last video, we briefly touched on exploitation by exploiting the Rigetto vulnerability within that HTTP file server service that we found running on port 80. But I'm going to dive a little deeper into that and show some things that we could do once we have compromised that system. And as you may guess by seeing some of my discovery output here on the screen, that we will be doing some pivoting since I have two targets here. All right. So target one, we have direct access to, which is located at 10.3.26.251. And target two, we do not have direct access to, and we will need to gain access to that from our exploitation of target one. And they live at 10.3.26.76. All right. So to get started, I'm just going to copy target one's IP address because I will need that in the immediate future. And I'm going to take us through the whole thing over again, but I'm not going to go into as many details. All right. So I'm going to start from the top as in terms of booting up Armitage and port scanning and enumeration. But I'm not going to just give as many details, and I'm just get us right back to the exploitation phase of things. All right, so let's just move this over here. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna start things off by starting up the PostgreSQL database, and then combine that with the step to start up the Metasploit framework because that needs to be running in the back end to get Armitage started. And once that's booted up, I'm gonna jump to a second terminal, open up Armitage. Now, just some forewarning, Armitage can be a bit glitchy at times, so some things may not work as anticipated, but hopefully um, I could get very far here for us to just showing us the process from port scanning to post exploitation. I may have to compensate a little bit if some things appear to be a bit broken. All right, so I'm opening up the second terminal and I'm gonna jump into Armitage here by just simply typing in Armitage, which again should be pre-packaged with distributions of Kali. So, all right, so I'm gonna go with the default setup here, tell it yes in that window, and wait a couple of minutes here, a few seconds to a couple of minutes here for this to fully boot up into the GUI. All right, looks like it's booting that up for us. Giving it a few more seconds here for it to boot up this bottom MSF console half. Looks like that's booted up for us. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, go to host here, and I'm going to add our target host so we could get a nice pretty visual of that here. All right, adding that. All right, now that we can visually see that machine, let's find out some more information about it. So I'm going to start by checking, right clicking in, hit scan. That's going to give us a basic TCP scan, and we're going to see which TCP ports are open. So it's going to scan 50,000 available ports and return back to us the information that finds out about it. Since this is a basic port scan, it's only going to be um, whether what ports are actually open, and it may not even list the protocol. It just may tell us what ports are actually open. Just giving it just a few seconds to a couple of minutes here. This could either run really slow or really fast, depending on what type of mood Armitage is in today. So far, so good. So it looks like we have port 80 open, which is HTTP. We have at least 3 ports associated with SMB that are open. So just waiting for the rest of this output to display, and then and we're just going to make sure that those services have updated based upon the enumeration I've done here. Okay, so let's right click that. Let's go to services. All right, so we have port numbers. We at least have whether they're UDP or TCP. Since that was a TCP scan, they're all going to be TCP. All right, and then we can see the IP address they're associated with. All right, so next thing I want to do is I want to run a do some further enumeration to see what protocols are actually running on these ports, and the default protocols that are associated with the ports, and then what services are running on those ports as well. So then I could be able to pick up on any sort of vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities with those services running, and then target those by finding some attacks for it. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick scan and just do an operating system detection. Everything looks good there as far as the IP address. So I'm gonna click OK. All right, this may take some time. Just some forewarning. So if it does, feel free to fast forward to where this completes. Even with aggressive scan, we can see right here with T4, it can still run a bit slow. All right. So far, so good as far as speed here. All right. So we can see that that the HTTP port is, excuse me, port 80 is running HTTP, and then the service is running is that HTTP file server HTTPD 2.3, which is um, um, vulnerable to that Rigetto exploitation. So I am going to search for that, and we're going to aim that exploitation at this machine. So I'm going to type in Rigetto here within the search pane, choose that. All right, and then as far as the options, everything looks good to go. I'm going to do a reverse connection here, and let's launch that. And we should be getting an interpreter session from this. There we go. Looks like everything's good to go. While we're waiting for that to complete, let's label this since we're dealing with 2 targets here. So I'm gonna say hosts, and then we're gonna set the label to target host 1. All right. Waiting for that interpreter session to start. So then we can really kick things off here. So basically, I'm just sitting here. I'm just sitting and waiting for a completion message here. There we go. Session one. Interpreter session one open. Great. All right. All right, so look, I should be good to go here since we got the interpreter session. So if we wanted to jump into that interpreter session to to do some further enumeration and possibly do some post exploitation, all right, I would go down here. Now we can see in the by right clicking our target, we can see that now I have another menu here that I didn't have before. All right, so I have a interpreter one menu since we do have that interpreter session now, and I have various sub menus, which I'm going to start by going with the in the interact menu, and then from interact we want a interpreter session. So I'm going to choose interpreter shell. All right, so that's going to open up another tab for me, and I'm going to just do my basic enumeration um, commands here. So I'm going to start with sysinfo. All right, so with sysinfo, we can see that it's indeed running a Windows Server 2012 Revision 2 operating system on it, which we could tell by the logo there. And it's running a 64-bit version of it, while I'm running a 32-bit version of Interpreter, which is fine for now. Um, and also, let's see, I also want to do a get UID. Um, a command here to be able to see who I'm logged in as and to get an idea of what level of permissions I may have or privileges I may have. All right, that's great. So since I have administrator, and let's zoom in on this a bit. So since I have administrator privileges here, I'm going to try to escalate my privileges even more by saying get system as as an attempt to get a full system authority. All right, always a good message there. So we could see that this changed from administrator now to NT authority system, which tells me that that indeed worked. But I can always verify that by doing a get UID again. And we can see now that I have full system authority. All right. So with that said, let's see if I can do a hash dump with my new set of privileges. All right, so we have the password hash for the administrator and for the guest, but administrator is definitely definitely more important here. All right, one thing I could do is if I wanted to save this into a file that I could find with the loop command, I would go to interpreter, access, and dump those hashes again, but do so using the registry method, and that's going to open up another window here for me and then another tab, and it's going to start to dump those hashes um, of via from the registry. All right, we can see we have that administrator password here. So if I exit out of this, I can exit out of these two because I don't really need those anymore. All right, so if I go to view and go to loop, now we can see where it says Windows hashes. If I double click that, there's our administrator tells me the file that this hash is saved in, and we have our administrator hash saved here to my local system. All right. So some other things that we could do here. So if I exit out of that, um, going back into the interpreter, All right, if I go back into these menus, we can see that I have some other options I could do here. If I wanted to escalate my privileges, which I've already done, or if I wanted to steal tokens, I'm gonna show a way we can do that. Um, a way we can more so access that. I'm not gonna steal any tokens in this video, but how we can get there. Um, and then, oops, let me go back here. Just show various ways we could dump hashes. Then they have the persistent method here, and then a pass the hash session there if I wanted to pass that hash to authenticate into the system. All right, going in the interact, I showed how we can establish a interpreter session, or we could do a command shell based upon this being a Windows system, or we could do a desktop VNC. Think in terms of RDP. All right, desktop to desktop session. All right, so if I go to explore here, this is where I'm gonna show some different things we can do that you're probably used to seeing me do via the command line, but with the ways we can do some of those basic steps that I've done in previous videos via the GUI. So if I go to browse files, for example. All right, so I would usually have to do like a list command to get like to see what's in the startup directory here. So right now I'm in the startup directory, and I would have to do a ls, and it would list out the commands here. All right, and we can see the hfs .exe file that that I was exploiting basically to since we're in the temp folder here that I was exploiting to get access to this machine. All right, and if you look at the very bottom, we can see that there's an upload button where I could directly upload files into this target host. I can make a directory, so I don't have to do that make dir command anymore. Or I could list out the drives, or I can refresh this in case anything changed. So if I click list drives, for example, it should list out for me the list of drives that are either fixed, that meaning they're connected internally into the system, or those removable drives like a USB drive or external hard drive. So I'm gonna click that. I see nothing changed there. So if I hit enter, let's see what comes up. Let's see, click OK. Nothing came up there. Let's try that. Let's do a refresh. You don't have permission to access that folder. I should. I have full system authority. All right, let's do a list again. List drives. There we go. All right. And it just maybe took some time to come up. All right. So we can see that it only appears to be one drive in here because it's C, more than likely that's going to be its primary fixed drive. So if I click on that, that takes me in, and then we can see that it brings me back just to where I was. Now, if I wanted to see the root of C, I would just delete all of this and just hit enter, and it should take me to the root of C, which I'm in. So instead of having to do a list function again, it just shows me everything that's at the C drive's root drive. So let's say I wanted to see the desktop of the administrator's account. So I would just go to users, administrator. So I don't have to keep doing dir and then cd dir. I don't have to keep doing that like I would before. And then desktop. And then down we can see there's a single file on the desktop. If I were to right click that, we can see my options as far as different things I could do as far as viewing it, downloading it, executing it if it was an executable, modifying it by a timestamp or excuse me, or deleting it. All right, so those are just some options I could do as far as things I could do as far as browsing files. So going back up to the explore menu within Interpreter 1, if I wanted to see the process tree, so I would usually either have to type ps or ps aux to see this. Now I could just click process tree. Let's see, let's delete that. All right, and then we can see the different processes here. So let's say that I did want to migrate to a 64-bit process. Well, I can choose a process here to be able to do that. All right, from this list, and just highlight it and just click the migrate button here. Or for some reason, let's say I wanted to kill a process, I could kill it with the kill process. if I wanted to start logging keystrokes, I could do the payload into one of these processes. This button allows me to do that. If I want to steal the access token from one of these processes with elevated privileges, I could do that from here. All right, so that's just another example of some things that we could do post exploit. All right, so let's exit out of that. All right, so going back to our explore menu. All right, so I already discussed the log keystrokes. So there's a video that I did as far as showing how we can take a screenshot of our target host. So instead of going through all of those steps, this time I could just simply click a button and voila, here's the desktop of our target host. All right, we can see that they have the that HTTP file server up. All right, and we can see that that's running. So we can see what's going on their desktop there. And let's see, I think that may be it as far as the explore menu. Um, and then of course if they're running a webcam, so if we wanted to get a shot from their webcam, we can click on that, but we're not allowed to have that much fun in this environment. So unfortunately, no camera to spy on folks on the other end. All right, so the next thing, now that we've gotten all those different things that we can do um, post post exploitation, the biggie that I wanted to cover is what we can do in terms of pivoting. All right, so how we can pivot from from one system into another that we don't have direct access into. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is that you may have seen before when I went under Interpreter 1 is go to the pivoting menu and start setting that up, start configuring the details that it needs. All right, so what it's going to do, actually, if you remember from my pivoting video, I had to actually run an auto root command and give it a CIDR address in order to be able to set up that route into the subnet of the target host. Well, this automatically did it for me. I just clicked the button. Here we here. All right, we have that subnet listed here, and then we have the net mask. So I don't have to list any of that, and all I have to do is click add pivot, and that route is created for me. All right, so I'm gonna click add pivot. All right, and I could sometimes it gives you that error message. I could do it again just to make sure that that went. If it says it's already that route's already been set up, that lets me know it actually worked. So let's try that again. Add pivot. See, route already exists. All right, so sometimes it gives you an error message. That's what I mean. That sometimes Armitage can be a bit glitchy. All right, so now that we got that set up, now I have to actually give it um, target two's address here so it knows where it's creating that route to. So I'm gonna say copy and going back to host, and I'm gonna add host again, and I'm gonna do a control V to add that oops, to add that host into here. All right, so that should be appearing any second, which it has. So I'm gonna start by labeling this uh, target host 2. All right, and then let me turn off auto layout so that way I can move these around the way I want to, so they're not overlapping. There we go. Okay. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to start by doing another port, a TCP port scan of this machine, like I did with Target One, just so we could see what ports are open, and hopefully it enumerates those ports. I know sometimes you may have to run it multiple times in order to get it on the service list. Seems to be an important factor as far as when I run this Nmap scan on here for Nmap to be able to pick up on those services. So crossing my fingers here that this actually actually works. So all right, so let's scan this. All right, great. All right, so we have port 80 already found. Let's see, I'm gonna get rid of this other exploit window. We don't need that anymore. All right, so it's already finding some SMB related ports. So let's give this a few seconds to a couple of minutes to run. All right, so it should be just a few more seconds. It's a rather long scan, but just wanted to see what our options are, what all of our options are as far as scanning. More than likely, I'm going to go for the low hanging fruit here, which is port 80, since it's known to be insecure by default, since there's no doesn't have any sort of encryption or protections on this traffic, and it's not being filtered, so makes it a rather easy target for me. All right, all done. All right, so crossing my fingers here. Let's see if these services were enumerated. Hey, yes, it was. They were. Okay, great news. Okay, so now I need to actually I'm gonna jump back here to our interpreter session here. Now I actually need to forward this traffic. All right, so I said I was going to target port for 80 for those who didn't fast forward the video. um, um, well, for those that did fast forward the video, excuse me, I said I was going to forward this traffic from port 80 of our target host to a open port on my machine. That way, we could then be able to run that Nmap scan on that open port on my machine, and it'll give us the results of whatever services are running on port 80 of our target host. All right, so to get that started, I'm going to say port FWD. All right, then I'm gonna say dash L to tell it which port on my machine, on my local host that I wanted to drive the traffic to, which I'm gonna say port 1234, since that should be unused, and then I'm gonna specify the port that I wanted to direct traffic from on the target host, which is port 80. All right, and then I have to specify where that target host lives by giving it its IP address. So I'm going to paste that in here. All right, and I should be, as far as forwarding that traffic from port 80 on our target host two's machine to my machine here at 1234. All right. Let's see. It didn't like something that I wrote. So what did you not like? Let's see. List the port. Yeah, that should have went. Duh. I have to actually tell it to add it. Okay, so I'm adding add here after port fork. I have to tell it to do that so it knows what to do with these variables that I've given it. All right, there we go. All right, so now if I go to console, all right, so I'm going to run, let's zoom in here a bit so we get to see what's going on. I'm going to run Nmap Scan on this by saying db nmap, and I'm going to run just a simple service version scan so we could see what services are running on this machine. Then I'm going to say specify the port, and we want to scan my port 1234, and for it to know to do that on my machine, I'm going to say local host. All right, let's get that running. Hopefully, we should be able to get a version to be able to see what services are running on port 80 of target 2, since it's forwarding that traffic to port 1234 on my system. Um, and then I could choose a vulnerability or exploitation of a vulnerability based on what it is, that information I'm given back by Nmap. So just a forewarning, this may be long, so feel free to fast forward as necessary. Great. All right. Boy, that was pretty fast. All right. Um, so it looks like it's running that bad blue vulnerable web application. All right. So I've done plenty of videos on this previously. So instead of having to search Metasploit for that, I could just do the search menu here in the search pane and just say bad blue, and I'm going to expand this right here a bit so we can see what's going on, and we can see there's the pass through buffer overflow exploitation here. So I'm going to click on this to get the options menu. So it looks like everything should be good to go. I'm fine with the L port, and the L host is, of course, myself. R host is target host 2. R port is 80, since that's where Bad Blue is being hosted from. So I'm going to leave everything else the same, and let's launch this. Another tab should be opening here. There it is. And let's see if we could get a interpreter session here. As you can see too, another PC has popped up here, which is my loopback address here, 127.0.0.1. This is acknowledging my machine as being part of its discovery here. All right, so some good news here. It looks like there we go. All right, and bam. All right, so we can see. We have we actually have a version that it's found, and I'm gonna enumerate all of this. Interpreter session 2 has opened. All right, so I should be good to go. I'm waiting for something to say that it's done, but that should be good enough. So it looks like I do have administrative privileges, which is great. So I'm gonna start doing some enumeration here. So I'm gonna go to interpreter 2, and let's open up that interpreter shell. Let's see what's going on here. All right. So I'm gonna do some let's say sysinfo, and let's zoom in a bit. All right, so it looks like I am running a 32-bit session here. I do have administrative privileges, which I can see up there, but I'm gonna do a get UID. And I'm running on Windows Server 2019 on a 64-bit version of that. So let's say get UID. All right, so we can see I have administrative privileges. So let's say I want to get system, all right, to see if I can escalate those privileges um, to full system authority. All right, it looks like that worked. All right, look, that worked. So we can see NT authority system. All right, so um, it already tells us the operating system here. So one thing I could show too, I'm not going to go through with it because it's already giving me the information I want. But let's say that part of enumeration, if it wasn't for some reason showing us the operating system, I could right click this, go to host, go to operating system, and just manually set the operating system. All right. And then if I go down to Windows here, it gives me different variations of Windows that I can set here, and in the logo will set it appropriately. But we have the right logo here because it's running Windows Server 2019. So let's say that I wanted to migrate to a 64-bit session here. All right. So the way I could do that is let's see, I could do the right click, all right, interpreter 2, and then go to the access menu, and let's say I wanted to dump the hashes for this, all right, by LSAS. Let's see if it'll actually let me do it. I assumed that because I had it actually let me do it. I assumed because I had a 32-bit session, it wouldn't let me do it, but no, it actually let me do it here. Okay, but one thing I can show, if we did want to migrate to a 64-bit session here, there's really no reason to, but I just wanted to show how to do that. If I go to let's say it was under Explore, go to Show Processes, and let's say that I wanted to let's see, this is 64-bit process. So let's say I wanted to migrate to that, right? I could just say I could just highlight lsas .exe, click migrate. It says migrating from 42444 to 784. All right. So if I let's say if I go back here, migration completed successfully. Okay. So let's see. So if I do another sysinfo, now where you can see that I have that 64-bit session going on here. All right. So which is along with the 64-bit version of Windows Server 2019. So I'm trying to think of anything else I could show. Pretty much, I mean, that's pretty much the basics of what things we could do, ways we could exploit using Armitage, and some post exploitation activities we could do with Armitage. I'm not going to take us through everything that I just did here, but basically, we were able to do several things such as um, dumping hashes for both targets. We were able to pivot using both targets. I was able to elevate my privileges by different means, by doing either a get system, or I was able to elevate my interpreter type by migrating to a 64-bit process using the process tree. So again, several different post exploitation methods we can do here. The only thing that I didn't really cover was persistence. But yeah, but please like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, show your work. And until next time, take